The sound of shattering glass reverberated through the towering structure of Nexus Technologies. It came from somewhere high above, near the executive floors, and for a brief moment, Ethan Anderson paused, mop in hand. The hum of late-night servers, the flickering lights overhead, and his own breath were all swallowed by that single sharp crack, as though the city itself had exhaled in pain. Then silence fell, broken only by the creaking open of freight elevator doors behind him. He turned slowly, expecting another forgotten delivery box or perhaps a fellow janitor. What he saw instead made him blink twice. A woman staggered inside like a wounded deer. Her corporate heels were gone, her tailored jacket torn at the shoulder. One side of her crisp white blouse clung to a dark stain that Ethan immediately recognized as blood. Her hands trembled, clutching something wrapped in a silk scarf. Her eyes, once famous on business magazine covers for their icy confidence, now appeared wide and wild. Charlotte Harrison, CEO, billionaire, now apparently a fugitive. Ethan didn't speak. He simply held the elevator door open. She didn't thank him, just leaned against the metal wall, breathing like someone who'd outrun a ghost. The doors groaned shut. As the elevator creaked down past the 30th floor, Charlotte's knees buckled. Ethan caught her elbow before she collapsed completely. "Don't," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "Don't help me. You don't know who I am." "I know enough," he muttered. "You're bleeding through an expensive blouse and hiding in a janitor's elevator. That narrows it down." She stared at him, then laughed. It emerged dry, humorless, jagged. "You think this is funny?" "No," he said, guiding her gently to sit on an upturned cleaning bucket. "But if I don't laugh a little, I'll probably start yelling, and I've got a kid sleeping 2 miles from here." Something in his voice made her pause. The elevator reached the basement. No alarms, no guards, just the quiet groan of aging concrete and the buzz of an overhead fluorescent light that blinked as if deciding whether to give up. "You should leave me," Charlotte said, still holding the scarf-wrapped object close. "They'll come looking. I just need to get out." "And this was your best bet?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "The janitor's shaft?" "I built this place," she said, teeth gritted. "I know where the blind spots are." He didn't press further. Instead, he gestured to a side door. "There's a staff exit by the alley, leads to Maple Street. Cameras are old, half don't work." She didn't move. "You want me to carry you?" "I want you to stop being decent," she said. "It's confusing." He shrugged. "I'm not decent, just tired, and I don't like seeing people crawl when they used to fly." That stopped her cold. Something shifted behind her eyes, a flicker of something buried deep, recognition, perhaps regret. "Then you were in aerospace," he blinked. "What?" "I read your file before the layoffs." Her voice steadied slightly. "Ethan Anderson, systems engineer, one of the whistleblowers during the Horizon project. You were blacklisted. Ended up here." A long silence followed, interrupted only by the flickering bulb. "So, you do know who I am," he said at last. "I know you believed in something. I don't remember the last time I met someone who didn't have a price." He looked at her a moment, then opened the staff door. "Come on," he said, "before you pass out, and I have to explain you to my daughter." Later, at Ethan's modest home near the rail line, the living room was small and warm, cluttered with second-hand books, a dusty telescope, and a watercolor painting taped to the wall. "The moon from here," it said, signed Lily, age 8. Charlotte sat on the worn couch, holding a hot mug of tea she hadn't touched. From the hallway came the soft voice of a child. "Daddy?" Ethan rose. "Go back to bed, sweet pea." A girl peeked around the corner, hair a tangled halo, pajamas too big. She clutched a sketch pad. She looked at Charlotte, eyes wide. "Is she bad?" Charlotte inhaled sharply. Ethan stepped beside his daughter. "No, she's just lost." The little girl nodded, then held up her sketch pad. On it, a dog soared through stars, and next to it, a woman with wings. "I gave her wings," she said softly, "so she can fly away if she's scared." Charlotte blinked, speechless. Her hand trembled slightly on the teacup. "What's your name?" she asked finally. "Lily." "That's a beautiful name," Lily shrugged. "I like drawing people better than naming them." Then she turned to her father. "I'm hungry." "It's past midnight," Ethan said, lifting her gently. "You'll turn into a raccoon." Charlotte watched them disappear down the hall, and for the first time in hours her breath seemed to slow. She looked down at the object in her lap. The scarf had loosened during the ride. A black hard drive, slightly scratched, with a single word scrolled in fading marker. Truth. Back in the hallway, Lily padded toward the couch holding a drawing. "I made another one," she said, offering it shyly. It was a picture of Charlotte sitting on a bench next to a man with tired eyes and a little girl between them, all looking up at the stars. Lily hesitated. "Do you want to keep it?" Charlotte didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded. The girl smiled, then paused, noticing something on the floor. "Daddy," she said, picking up a plastic card. This was in her pocket. Ethan took the badge. It was Charlotte Harrison's Nexus Access ID. Across the back, in bold black letters, read, "Do not exit after board meeting." Ethan froze. So did Charlotte. A beat of silence. Then somewhere outside, the faintest sound of gravel crunching under slow, deliberate footsteps. Ethan moved first, quietly shutting off the hallway light with one hand while motioning Lily back toward her room with the other. Charlotte clutched the hard drive tighter. "Stay quiet," Ethan whispered. "Back door's got a bolt, but the front—" "I know how to disappear," she interrupted, her voice low, controlled. He turned to her, eyes searching. "Do you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled off her shoes, handed him the mug of untouched tea, and stepped silently toward the kitchen. It wasn't the poise of someone hiding. It was the muscle memory of someone who'd trained for moments like this. Ethan picked up the ID badge she'd dropped and slipped it into his back pocket. 3 taps on the front door, not a knock, a pattern, rhythmic, deliberate. Ethan didn't respond. He walked to the front window, peered through the slit in the curtain. A man in a charcoal coat, black gloves. He wasn't holding food. Behind him a second figure lingered by the fence. Taller, leaner, watching the roofline. Ethan backed away. "I've got Lily," he said, turning to Charlotte. "You've got 30 seconds. Bathroom window leads to the fence. Slide the can out, jump soft." Charlotte hesitated just long enough for him to see a flicker of guilt. "I didn't mean for this to follow me," she said. Ethan didn't flinch. "It always does. Truth's like smoke. You think it'll vanish, but it finds cracks." She locked eyes with him, then disappeared down the hallway. Moments later, a faint creak, the sound of the window sliding open, followed by the quietest thud in the backyard. Ethan opened Lily's bedroom door. She was curled up under the blankets, eyes wide. "Are they here for her?" He nodded. "Probably." "Is she bad?" He sat beside her, brushing a curl from her cheek. "She's not a villain, just someone who finally stopped lying to others and to herself." Lily whispered, "That's scary." "Yeah," Ethan replied softly. "The bravest things usually are." By sunrise, the sky was the color of soft steel. Ethan stood barefoot in the kitchen, a mug of black coffee warming his hands. Charlotte sat across from him, damp curls falling around her face, wrapped in an old flannel blanket that once belonged to his wife. "I landed wrong," she muttered, "twisted my ankle." He pointed to her foot. "I've got ice. I'm fine." "You're bleeding into my blanket." She gave him a look that was half offense, half gratitude. He poured her a cup anyway. For a while, neither spoke. Lily was still asleep. The house was quiet, except for the distant echo of a freight train and the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog. "Why'd you come here?" he finally asked. "Of all places." Charlotte stared into her cup. "Because I remembered the only time someone looked me in the eye and didn't want anything in return." Ethan raised a brow. "That's a low bar." "Maybe. But you didn't flinch when I told the truth." "You didn't tell the truth," he said. "You bled it." She smiled faintly. "That's fair." He set down his mug. "What's on the drive?" A pause. Then, "Data leaks, internal memos, transaction logs, proof that Nexus manipulated predictive data to sabotage competitors, adjust political funding flows, and reassign dissenters." "Reassign?" "Disappear, buy out, framed Barry." Ethan exhaled slowly. "And you?" I was their compass, she said, until I realized they'd magnetized the needle. That's poetic, she shrugged. I used to want to be a writer. A long silence stretched between them. Then quietly she added, my mother was one. Ethan nodded slowly. My wife was a pilot. Charlotte looked up. She wanted to teach kids to fly, he said, eyes softening. Told me the sky was just another kind of classroom. Charlotte folded her arms tighter. Is that how you ended up here? She asked. They grounded her, he replied. Budget cuts. Then came the lawsuits. Then came the pills. He didn't need to say more. Charlotte looked away. I'm sorry, he shook his head. You didn't start the storm, but now you're in it. She met his eyes. I can't undo what I built. No, Ethan said, but you can choose what grows in its ashes. Charlotte fell quiet. Then she pulled the drive from her coat and placed it on the table between them. I want to release it, she said, anonymously, not to the media, not the feds. Then who? She hesitated. Someone who still knows how to speak truth without being owned by it. Ethan stared at the drive, then at her. Don't look at me like that, he said. Like what? Like I'm the last clean name on your list. You're not, she said. You're just the first one I still trust. From the hallway, Lily's voice cut in. Daddy? The lady. Did she fly yet? Charlotte blinked. Ethan smiled, pushing back from the table. Not yet, sweet pea, but I think she's almost ready. Morning light filtered through the blinds in soft slanted beams, dust motes dancing in the air like they had somewhere to be. Charlotte stood at the window in his flannel shirt, arms crossed, watching the fence line as if the shadows themselves might betray her. Is she always this quiet in the morning? She asked, nodding toward the hallway. Only when she's drawing. Ethan poured coffee. That's when the world disappears for her. Charlotte half smiled. Must be nice. Lily appeared 10 minutes later, in socked feet, her curls a storm of dreams. She carried a folded paper in both hands like it was made of glass. I drew you again, she said to Charlotte, but this time I gave you wings. Charlotte blinked. Why? Because yesterday you looked like someone who forgot how to fly. Ethan froze in the doorway, his back to them. Charlotte knelt down. You think wings fix that? No, Lily said seriously, but they remind people that they can. Charlotte swallowed the lump in her throat, took the paper, and looked at it like it might burn her fingers. A sketchy version of herself stood on a rooftop, arms wide with a pair of uneven but determined wings on her back. The sky was messy and full of stars. I used to think flying meant leaving everything behind, Charlotte murmured. Lily tilted her head. Maybe it just means seeing everything from higher up. Ethan coughed from the kitchen, loud and intentional. All right, philosopher, go grab your coat. Bus'll be here in 15. As Lily skipped off, Charlotte turned to him. She's not like most kids. She's not like most anyone, Ethan said. Lost her mom to a system that never said sorry, gained an artist with a telescope for a heart. He took a long sip of his coffee and stared at her over the rim. You know, he said, most people who hide don't spend their first night making grilled cheese and listening to cassette tapes. Charlotte shrugged. Most people aren't hunted by people they once called sir. That landed heavier than either expected. Ethan leaned back against the counter. You could have kept running. I did, she said. For 3 years, different cities, fake names, half-truths to people who deserved whole ones. But it never felt like disappearing, just slow-motion drowning. And now? She looked up at him. Now I want to breathe, even if it burns. He set down his mug. Then let's start small. By noon, Charlotte was sitting cross-legged on Ethan's porch, sanding the frame of an old bench that had been broken since Lily learned to walk. Manual labor wasn't in the witness protection brochure, she said, wiping sweat from her brow. Ethan chuckled. It's therapeutic. Besides, it's not about the bench. It's about fixing something no one else bothered to. She looked at him. You always talk like that? Only when someone's listening. Charlotte paused, then softly. What if I break it worse? Then you learn and try again. She looked down at her hands. It's been a long time since I built anything that didn't ruin someone. He met her eyes. then maybe it's time to build something that saves one. That night, after Lily had gone to bed and the porch light buzzed softly with moths, Charlotte stood alone by the radio console Ethan had restored from the junkyard. She ran her fingers across the knobs, old brass, burnished edges, the kind of thing made to last, not to impress. Ethan walked in with 2 mugs of tea. "You still thinking about what to do with the drive?" he asked. "I'm thinking about what happens after," she said. He sat across from her, the low hum of the porch light folding into the quiet. "No whistle-blowing hotline, no news crew," she said. "But I still want the truth out there." That night, Lily surprised them with a poem she had written for school. "It's called The Chair That Waits," she declared with theatrical gravity. Ethan smiled. "Sounds like a mystery." Charlotte leaned forward. "Or a metaphor," Lily began, voice small but steady. "In every house there is a chair that no one dares to sit. It holds the weight of whispered things, of love that never quit. It waits beside the windowsill for stories left untold, for hands that shake but still reach out, for people growing old. Some say it's just a place to rest, but I think it's much more a chair that keeps the space between the leaving and the door." By the last line, even Charlotte's breath seemed to slow. Ethan whispered, "Your mom would have been proud." "I know," Lily said proudly and sat down like she'd just moved the earth half an inch. Charlotte cleared her throat and blinked quickly. "That was remarkable." "Did you really like it?" Lily asked. Leaning in, Charlotte reached across the table and touched her hand lightly. "I didn't just like it, Lily. I think your poem heard me." The room went still. Later that night, Ethan revealed he had examined the hard drive. The level of corruption, the way data was being siphoned, how lives were being calculated into projections like people were numbers you could erase. Charlotte's lips pressed tight. "And you," he said softly, "you tried to stop it. I saw the letter, the one they never answered. I wrote 23, she whispered. "That was just the last one," he nodded. "I want to help, Charlotte, not just because it's right, but because if my daughter's ever caught in the machinery of this world, I want to know I fought to make it safer." Charlotte looked down, then stood and took the hard drive back. She didn't say thank you. She didn't have to. She looked at Lily, busy arranging forks, humming to herself and then at Ethan. "You ever feel like you stepped into someone else's dream?" she asked. He smiled. "Only when it starts to feel real." That night, long after the dishes were clean and the candles had burned low, Charlotte stood on the back porch alone. In her hands, Lily's poem. The stars above the horizon were too few to count, but just enough to matter. The next morning, Ethan and Charlotte discussed what to do with the hard drive. "I thought I'd feel better," she murmured, staring at it. "Handing it to someone else, letting someone else know." "And do you?" he asked, turning. She met his eyes. "I feel exposed, like the moment you speak a secret out loud, it grows teeth." Ethan nodded. "Secrets always come with consequences, but silence isn't the same as safety." He pulled out a chair and sat across from her. "When I worked aerospace," he said, "we had a saying, if the engine fails and you say nothing, it's your fault when the plane goes down." Charlotte raised an eyebrow. "Are you calling me the engine?" "I'm saying maybe you're the one person who knows the bolts are coming loose, and pretending you don't won't keep anyone flying." She leaned back, arms crossed. "You don't understand. It's not just numbers and projections in there, it's names, families, politicians. I go public with this, and I won't just lose my name. I'll ruin others too. Some of them didn't even know they were complicit." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Legacy is only useful if it doesn't make you blind. Later that day, Lily was playing with cardboard boxes in the backyard, building a rocket ship. "Hey, Rocket Commander," Charlotte called, smiling. Lily popped her head out of the box. "Commander Lily to base. We have liftoff in T-15 seconds." Charlotte stepped into the yard. "Permission to board?" Lily nodded with exaggerated seriousness. "Only if you believe in moondogs and secret wings." Charlotte blinked. "Moondogs?" "It's a story I'm writing," Lily said proudly, "about a dog who got left behind but builds his own rocket. He's sad, but he's brave." Charlotte knelt beside the box. "And does he ever get home?" Lily shrugged. "Maybe, But sometimes being brave is just choosing to launch anyway. That stopped Charlotte cold. Do you even know how much wisdom you carry? I'm 8. I carry snacks and secrets. The same thing, Charlotte laughed, a real laugh this time. Then her smile faded. Lily, she asked, voice softer, if someone knew something really big, something scary, but telling it might hurt people, what would you want them to do? Lily considered. I'd want them to be brave, like the moondog, but only if they do it with love, not anger. Otherwise, it's just noise. That night, she made a call to an old colleague who could help. I'm going to do something with love, not noise, she told him. Then she hung up. The next morning, Ethan found her by the front door, tying her boots with a determined grace. You going somewhere, he asked. To a place that still believes in signal over static, she replied. There's a community radio station just outside downtown. Used to be where whistleblowers read poetry when no one else would listen. Ethan leaned against the door frame, arms folded. That's not exactly secure. No, she said, but it's human, and they still know the sound of truth when they hear it. He handed her a folded piece of paper. Just in case. She opened it. Coordinates, a time, a rooftop. He nodded. Signal booster. You'll get 10 minutes of uninterrupted feed. That's all I can promise. Charlotte tucked the paper into her coat. Why are you helping me? She asked. Ethan looked at her for a long time. Because my daughter thinks you have wings. And I've learned not to question her instincts. As Charlotte opened the front door to leave, Lily came bounding down the stairs in her pajamas, holding something in her hand. Wait, Charlotte turned. Lily handed her a small, crumpled drawing. The moondog, wings wide, scars visible, eyes determined. I made a new version, she said. This time, he's not flying alone. Charlotte knelt down, hugged her tight. Neither am I, she whispered. Then she was gone. At the forgotten radio station, wedged between a shuttered mechanic's garage and a laundromat, Charlotte stood clutching the black hard drive like it was a living thing. The old man at the booth looked up, startled as she entered. You still take walk-ins? She asked, pulling down her hood. Recognition settled in behind his cataract-clouded eyes. Harrison? Didn't think you'd come back through that door. Neither did I. He stared at her, then at the hard drive. You've got something people need to hear. She nodded. 10 minutes, no edits, no delays. He leaned back, cracked his knuckles and flipped a switch. The on-air sign blinked red. The countdown began. My name is Charlotte Harrison. Her voice, calm but not cold, broke the air like dawn. Until last week, I was the CEO of Nexus Technologies, a company that promised to help the world think smarter, feel safer, live freer. We lied. She paused. I have with me a hard drive. It contains proof that our neural behavioral tech wasn't just used to recommend music or improve shopping habits. It was used to track, manipulate, and influence decisions, political, personal, even medical, without consent, she continued. When I tried to raise alarms, I was removed. Quietly, efficiently. Efficiently. And those who knew were either paid or silenced. But tonight, I choose something different. I choose noise. I choose clarity. I choose to be one more voice that doesn't whisper when shouting might save someone. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from release. I know this may cost me everything, but if there's a girl out there like the one I met yesterday who believes people can grow wings again, then maybe it's worth it. The red light blinked faster now. And to those listening, if you feel powerless, remember this. The system depends on your silence, your stillness. But the moment you move, the moment you speak, you become the disruption they fear. Then clicked, the mic cut. They jammed us, the DJ whispered. We're off air. Charlotte froze. Outside, a black SUV pulled up. The DJ stood. There's a back exit, he muttered, handing her a small cassette. Backup copy. Take it and run. Charlotte clutched the tape and bolted down the narrow hallway, disappearing into the alley. 20 minutes later, she arrived at the rooftop coordinates Ethan had given her. Ethan stood beside a rusted control box, adjusting cables with practiced precision. She held up the cassette. They cut the station. He didn't flinch. Then we go higher. Ethan plugged the cable into the transmitter, flipped 3 switches, and nodded. "You've got 1 shot, 10 minutes of pure signal, just like I promised." She placed the cassette into the deck. A deep breath. Then she hit play. From windows to buses to dented kitchen radios, her voice poured out again. This time unedited, unstoppable. The rooftop wind howled louder now, as if nature itself leaned in to hear. Then a distant noise from the alley below, boots on metal steps. Ethan turned to her, eyes sharp. "Go." "I'm not leaving you," she said. He shook his head. "You—" Then he walked to the edge of the building and pulled a cable from the junction box. Sparks flew. The lights went dark. "Sark, sark!" The next day, they met with an attorney named Catherine Thompson in a small law office that smelled faintly of old paper and stronger coffee. "Best case, you're summoned before Congress. Worst case, you vanish between headlines," Catherine told Charlotte after examining the evidence. Then she turned to Ethan. "But I'm not worried about her. I'm worried about you." Ethan blinked. "Me?" "You have a daughter," Catherine said. "They'll go after what makes you hesitate." Charlotte leaned in. "Don't." But Catherine continued, her voice almost kind. "You think you're protecting her by staying out of the storm, Ethan, but sometimes it's the quiet ones they erase first because no one notices." Charlotte looked at Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't owe me anything. If you want to walk away now, I understand." He stared at the table. Then he spoke. "When Lily was 5, she asked why the moon followed us home. I told her it was because light remembers who looks up at it. I won't teach her to look down." That night, the house creaked in a way Ethan had come to know not from age, but from silence folding in on itself. It was past midnight when the phone rang. When he picked up, a voice filtered, metallic, low. "If you keep going, your daughter won't just lose a father. She'll lose her name, her school, her hospital file, her future." Click. No call ID, no trace, just the sound of the fridge humming, the weight of the air turning solid. Ethan didn't move. He didn't call out. He just sat at the table in the dark. He didn't know how long he sat there, but he knew the moment Lily padded into the kitchen half asleep, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy?" Her voice was small, but the room seemed to listen to it. He looked up, managed to smile. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head and climbed into his lap. "Was Mommy like Charlotte?" she asked drowsily. "Smart and kind of quiet and strong." Ethan wrapped his arms around her. "No," he said softly. "Mommy was louder, but she believed in quiet people." Lily rested her head against his chest. "Are we going to be okay?" He didn't answer right away. Then quietly, "Yes, we're going to be okay." She looked up. "Even if they don't like what you say?" "Especially then," he said, "because silence isn't always safe, and some words are worth the risk." 2 weeks later, the headlines broke. The Nexus files were now public knowledge, submitted to a Senate subcommittee through Catherine Thompson. Ethan testified as a witness to the chain of custody. Charlotte Harrison became the face of corporate whistleblowing, both vilified and celebrated. But in a small town 3 states over, nestled near a forgotten lake, Charlotte Harrison began her new life as Charlotte Jensen, a math tutor at a community center, a woman who didn't own a cell phone and baked muffins on Saturdays for children she didn't know. Ethan and Lily visited once a month. They never stayed overnight, never used the same route twice. But every time they arrived, Lily ran to her like a niece to her favorite aunt. And every time they left, Charlotte stood at the porch, a quiet figure behind a screen door, waving, as if she didn't belong to any past anymore. Ethan, meanwhile, took a consulting job at a small ethics and tech nonprofit. Nothing flashy, just honest work. He wore denim to meetings, drank burnt coffee, spoke at local high schools about digital responsibility. One evening, Ethan and Lily sat at the kitchen table cutting vegetables for soup. She was humming softly the same melody Charlotte once played on their dusty piano. "Dad," she said, not looking up, "do you think they'll ever say she was right?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. He set down the knife, wiped his hands on a dish towel. "Maybe not," he said. "But here's the thing. Truth doesn't ask to be recognized, it just asks not to be forgotten. Lily looked at him. Is that why we still visit her? He nodded. She protected something while she was still breathing. Lily smiled faintly. So did you. That night, Ethan pulled a small frame from a drawer. Inside it, a single sheet of handwritten music. The melody Charlotte taught Lily, the one his wife composed before she died. At the bottom, written in Charlotte's careful script, "Don't let your voice disappear beneath the noise. Sing, even when no one listens." He hung it above the piano. No ceremony, just a quiet promise between the past and what came after. The snow had come early that year. It fell in quiet spirals outside the windows, dusting the porch railings and the pines beyond. Inside the little house, the fireplace crackled gently, sending shadows dancing across the floorboards. Lily sat cross-legged on the living room rug, her notebook open, pencil moving in short, deliberate strokes. Her drawing was nearly finished, a piano with wings. Ethan watched her from the couch, a cup of tea in his hand, steam curling past his face. "Hey, Dad," Lily asked, still sketching. "Yeah, sweetheart." She looked up, thoughtful. "The things Miss Charlotte told you back then, do you think all of it was true?" Ethan took a long breath. He set the cup down and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I don't know," he said. "I think some of it was. Maybe not all the facts, but the why behind it. That felt true." Lily tilted her head. "So, does that mean what you did was right?" He smiled gently, not confidently. "I think so. Not because it was easy or even smart, but because it's what I'd want you to do if you ever had to choose between comfort and conscience." She was quiet a moment, then nodded like she understood something too big for words. He looked at her drawing again. "Wings on a piano?" he asked with a small laugh. She grinned. "It's flying out of a building, like in those old spy movies, but instead of exploding, it just plays a song that makes people stop lying." Ethan laughed, the kind of laugh that feels like home. "I hope you never lose that imagination," he said. On a quiet summer evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the fireflies blinked like slow applause, Lily asked her father one last question. "Dad, are we the good guys?" Ethan looked at her, at the child who once gave wings to broken songs, at the girl who kept believing even when adults stopped, and with a voice low, steady, and full of something deeper than certainty, he said, "We tried to be." And maybe that's the loudest truth we'll ever tell. A story not just about secrets or systems, but about the quiet courage it takes to do the right thing, especially when no one is watching. About a single dad, a forgotten melody, and a woman who chose truth over comfort.